This is Marcus Washington from Making the Cut, and I'm pleased to be joined today by George Washington men's basketball assistant coach Graham Bousley. How you doing, Coach?
What's up, Marcus? Thanks for having me.
Cool. So I was looking at your background, and you've worked with Bo Ryan, Shaka Smart, Mike Rhodes. My first question is going to be what is it like being in a program where they run the swing offense? Sort of what are some of the misconceptions about the swing offense, and how do you recruit for that offense?
Yeah, it was a good experience working for Wisconsin, and the swing offense, was really developed by Coach Ryan over his many years as a head coach. Even back from UW-Platteville, where he won 4 national championships in the WEAC conference in Division III. And it was nice coming into the program when they were already pretty much established, and it was cool because he just like learning that system. They had all the counters, all the reads, all that stuff like laid out already. So there was just like so much to learn because of the knowledge he had built up running the same thing over and over again for years. So it was great. And we were fortunate when I was there too. That was like our swing offense was our foundation, and we had some really good guards. So we were able to start ball screening and doing some of that stuff with 2 pick and pop bigs. So it was great, like learning that foundation of the swing offense where there was just cuts and reads, and you had smart players moving off the ball, and then, using those specials for your good guards and stuff like that. So yeah, I learned a lot. It was awesome just learning so much about the game from him.
So for a typical recruit, how long did it take them to learn all the counters and all the reads coming out of high schools and some of them with AAU backgrounds, where you're really not seeing a lot of that on that level? What was the learning curve?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, at Wisconsin, they, Coach Ryan was such an established coach in the Wisconsin area. I mean, he spent, I think, 15 years at UW-Platteville before UW-Milwaukee and then Wisconsin. So, and a lot of his players that played Division III ended up being high school coaches in the area. So he had a significant amount of players and high school programs and AU programs running the swing. So there was like a good familiarity with a lot of good players in the area. And then, at our elite camps and stuff, it was a lot of breakdowns of the swing and stuff like that. So it was like kind of recruiting to fit the offense. And so, there wasn't a large learning curve for a lot of the guys. But some of the guys we would obviously fit and change to mold like we do at GW, like tailor some specials to a good guard who can come off a ball screen and things like that. But we always had that foundation, and it was kind of a part of the recruiting process to make sure you got guys who could play off the ball and have a little feel. So it was it wasn't too bad in terms of the learning curve because they were always recruiting to fit that system.
So under Shaka and under Mike Rhodes, both of them out that kind of that VCU lineage, but there are some differences between what those two do. It's not exactly the same. What are some of the subtle differences that you saw with Shaka and some of the differences between him and Mike Rhodes?
Yeah, Coach Smart was an unbelievable mentor to me, and I really learned a lot about, how you treat and work with and motivate people from him. He's just an unbelievable person who's insanely intelligent and an unbelievable student of the game and always working and growing. And so when I was a GA, I was just fortunate to just soak up a lot from him. As a GA, and even as a manager when I was at Wisconsin, you don't get a lot of the glamorous jobs, right? But I, took those opportunities to try to learn more. Like one of my jobs was, I would drive Coach Smart on a long road trip if he needed to make phone calls. And that was just a free opportunity for me to just pick his brain and learn from him, and just learn, how he's making his calls and stuff like that. So I learned a lot just about, motivation, the human side of it. And then obviously, the Havoc style of play and how you kind of develop a team for that. I was lucky to be able to work at Wisconsin, which is typically like one style and then a very different style at VCU, and I feel like I learned a lot from both of those situations. And then Coach Mike Rhodes, where I was director of operations for him, I learned a lot about just starting up a rebuilding program and his attention to detail, having been a D3 coach for a long time and doing, a lot more jobs, as smaller staff in D3. I just learned a lot about his detail and the way he holds people accountable to do their job. It was a remarkable experience, and it was great because I had a lot of responsibilities as operations, doing a lot of the budgets and the travel and setting up the gym and all the things I did somewhat as a manager, but now I was in control of it. And, his Coach Rhodes' standards for things are he's not bending, you have to do it to the highest level. And that really helped me develop as a coach, just learning that the standard is the standard and how he holds people accountable to reach that level.
So you're listed as the offense coordinator at George Washington. When we see that term, a lot of times we see that term with football. What goes into that job and that responsibility of directing an offense in the Atlantic 10 that in the short time that this staff has been here is becoming more and more dangerous?
Yeah. Well, I mean, credit to Coach Christian. I've learned so much from him from the offensive side of the ball. He's one of the best offensive masterminds I've ever been around. And, we work together pretty closely and collaborate a lot on, putting people in the right positions to be successful. We run a lot of plays and we're primarily a pick and roll offense, and it's great working with him. And, I love working with him because he has such a clear vision of, what players he wants in his system, what roles they have, and how he wants things to operate. And the best thing about him is he always says offensively, we can do whatever we want. And it's true. We'll pull from a lot of different places, and it's a great, platform to just be creative. And, he really challenges not only me, but the rest of the staff in terms of bringing in outside ideas and pushing us to grow as coaches. And so it's fun. It's fun being the offensive coordinator, and it's fun, working together with Coach Christian and calling plays and doing all that stuff. I love it. It's so fun to be in a creative environment to work like that.
It seems like the players have a remarkable level of flexibility. When I'm out there and watch them play, it's not like they're restrained in any sort of way. How, for a young player coming into that program, how do they balance that responsibility and going out there and staying within your structure and not hunting shots or anything like that? Because I do know, just from being on the lower levels, being on the high school level, that sometimes that is a problem with kids. It's the whole maturation process of learning what's a good shot within the system and what's kind of hunting shots within the system.
Yeah, I think, the two things that really help us offensively and have helped us, be one of the leading three-point shooting teams in the nation and one of the best pick and roll teams in the nation. It's just we do bring in guys to play, and we do bring in, talented players who can, and Coach Christian has a great standard for the level of player that he wants to coach. And so we're always bringing in smart, unselfish guys that have a good humility level to them. And so they're just coming in ready to learn, and they have a pretty good talent level. And I think the next step is just making sure you're diligent and you're working with these guys every day. A lot of the things we do, one of my jobs is to grade every possession that happens in practice and games. And so, when you're tasked with that level of detail, when working with a guy for player development or working with a guy for play calling or figuring out the systems for your team, there might be some struggles early on, but, tribute to a lot of the guys, they're just there's a good trust level that we build up pretty early because we spend so much time with them and make it more than just basketball. And they really grow quickly. And, you see them, even though we might run 300 plays or more in a year, at some point during the season, it just starts clicking and all that work is oh, I get it. You know what I mean? And I think if you're just willing to spend that much time and put in that much work into the details of everything you do, then those guys are gonna be successful as long as you have that trust factor with them.
If you're recruiting a big without giving away recruiting secrets, and they see that sort of offense, and maybe they're not a stretch big, maybe they're more traditional because that's how they're being used in high school.
Yep.
How do you sell the program and sell their development to them that, hey, you come to GW, yes, we might shoot a lot of three-pointers, but you're not going to get lost in this offense?
Yeah, well, one of the things we really look for in bigs, and we've had my time with Coach Christian at a couple different places. We've had different types of bigs, but I think what it comes down to is just, doing what you do best and understand your role. Like, we typically on our teams, it's varied, but when we've been good, we've had a good 5-man, and, we need that guy to shoot upwards of 60% from the field and be able to be good on the pick and roll game and finishing, but also be able to be good in the short roll game and make plays and be another decision maker. And then a lot of what we do in terms of our flow, which happens, after the ball screen or before the ball screen, is like, we really emphasize throwing it in the post and cutting and moving off that and then scoring in the post. So typically it's a great offense for bigs to be in, because obviously in the pick and roll, the guard has a lot of responsibility, but we put a lot of onus on the bigs to be another decision maker, make the next pass, make the right read, and be able to play out of the post and stuff like that. So I'm biased, obviously, but I think it's really fun for a big to play in our offense.
What is one of the misconceptions? I deal with a lot of parents who players are going to play at that next level, whether it's in D3, D2, or D1. What is probably the biggest misconception that parents and players on that high school level have about how they develop a role on the college level?
I think it's tough, because whenever you change a level, whether it's high school to college or college to the NBA, there is that process of you figuring out what your role is on the team. And we really try to, pick out 3 things that this guy does best and really emphasize what they do so that the transition for them is a little easier. Now, the thing that I think is the key to, just a team being good is just building that trust factor between player and coach, and also just having that buy-in. If a guy is a really good shooter and, maybe that first year he's going to focus more on shooting threes rather than doing all of the things. Now, in our player development, we're working on a lot of different skills all the time, but we try to not give them necessarily too much in terms of the skill work, so they can really get comfortable in a role early on and then start to expand their game. So, I think it's funny, like a high school player might be coming into a college situation, and at GW, where we got a lot of talent, thinking they're going to do the same thing that you do in high school, but it's just a different game. And it's not to say that that guy won't be the best player on the team eventually, but there is a transition period where you got to really lean on your strengths and just, step into that, and then just trust the coaches and the role they have for you.
So I come from an era where I like to call bubblegum statistics, which is points, rebounds, and assists. And we're in an era of a lot of advanced statting, however you want to put it. I know in baseball, the old term was sabermetrics, that sort of thing. As a coach and the coaching staff and as a program, how do you balance the traditional stats with the advanced stats and with what you're seeing with your eyes?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we typically, we grade almost everything, like I talked about. We have a lot of metrics that we use, but we kind of prioritize them in terms of what we deem as most important for our program. Like, we will usually, at the start of the season in the locker room, we'll draw up a formula for how we win. So we're taking how many threes we want to shoot in a game, how many free throws we want to shoot, what's our offensive rebounding percentage. So a lot of different stats, and we're putting that formula up there so they can see, in terms of the points, rebounds, and stuff like that, how it looks for our teams, typically like our style of play. Now, on the other side of that, we'll go heavily into process-driven statistics, in terms of We have a rebounding chart. So a lot of the things that don't show up on the traditional stat sheet, we really emphasize that in terms of player development and knowing your role. And then when we put all of that together in that formula, they can see how it fits, how they fit in for the rest of the team. So, as it's kind of a long answer, but I think we use all of that stuff, and, we really try to get them to understand the meaning and the importance of each statistic, so that eventually, maybe on a scouting report, when it's a 67% left-hand driver, they know that in the game, and they really take ownership of that, and they know what a good shot and a bad shot is, because we do so much work on the front end and getting them to understand, true shooting percentage and those different statistics that are like newer age and stuff like that.
How do you guys sell the program to a recruit beyond just basketball? Obviously, I know you going to speak to them about how they fit into the system and those type of things. How do you sell that Washington, D.C. area? Because George Washington, just as a university, literally has people from around the world. It's such an international place to come. How do you sell the campus being in an urban area? How do you sell the city? How do you do that with a recruit coming in?
Yeah, well, I think from a basketball perspective, our mission is to do something that's never been done. So we're able to attract high achieving student athletes that want to bring a national championship to GW. So that's number one basketball wise. And then everything else, comes out of that. But we also, as a program, really stress that love is accountability and accountability is love. So we're really, trying to create a caring environment to develop them, but also holding them accountable to their dreams and their actions. I think it's a great university, first of all, high academic, in a great city, in a great area. So I think we really attract, student athletes that want to make the most of their experience, and really want to achieve some success and really try to cement their identity as a person and grow as a person. So, a lot of it just comes back to, finding those high potential individuals that really want to grow and develop and learn, and, do it in a place where the person next to you is doing that same thing, whether it's in the locker room, whether it's in your business class, whatever class you're in. So if I think recruits, and just being in the world's most powerful city where all the decisions are made, I think just the opportunity to come to a school and a basketball program where you're going to be pushed and you're going to be around, high level individuals and high potential individuals, it's going to just push you to be that much better. So I think that's exciting if I were a basketball recruit and a student coming to GW.
Cool. Thanks, Coach. Thanks for your time today. I really, really appreciate that you took time out your day to join me. And again, I always love coming out there, always love covering the team. You guys are a great staff, and you guys have some of the nicest players on your team, and I always enjoy it.
Appreciate it, Marcus. Thanks so much. Love all your tweets. Love your program. Looking to see the rest of it too. Thank you so much.